friends, let me tell you something. The United States of America just sent a missile into a little narco-trafficking boat somewhere in the deep blue water, and two drug-running cartel-connected narco-terrorist scumbags are no longer among the living, and the drive-by media can barely bring itself to mention it. Now, I have been sitting here in the Attila the Hun chair behind the golden EIP microphone, watching the news crawl, waiting for the breathless coverage, waiting for the panel of 17 experts to come on and tell me what this means for, I don't know, regional stability or the feelings of the international community or whatever. Nothing. Crickets. You'd think they'd have at least sent a reporter to stand on a dock somewhere looking concerned. But here's what happened. The United States military, acting on intelligence, tracked a vessel, a low-profile vessel, one of those go-fast boats the cartels love, and determined it was involved in narco-trafficking. And then they did what you do with narco-traffickers who are moving poison into this country. They removed them permanently with extreme prejudice. This is the second strike like this in 2 months. 2 months, and the Trump administration has barely broken a sweat announcing it. Now, is this the story? Is this what's making headlines today? Is the political class in Washington losing its mind over 2 dead cartel operatives? Not quite. We have a trade war with Canada that Mike Pence is wringing his hands about. We have Fauci's inner circle pleading guilty to a COVID cover-up conspiracy. We have the Democratic Socialists of America throwing a birthday party for Fidel Castro. And we have Enes Kanter Freedom, a man I genuinely admire, getting tossed out of a WNBA arena for apparently having the wrong opinions. We have got a full show today. Strap in. I'm Rick LeBow. This is Rush Hour, and we are just getting started. All right, let's talk about Canada. Now, I want you to picture something. Picture your neighbor, nice enough guy, waves to you in the morning, you plow his driveway when the snow gets bad, and for decades, you have been subsidizing his lifestyle. You buy his lumber, you buy his oil, you buy his softwood, you buy his beef. You are essentially his largest customer, his best friend, and his personal security guard all rolled into one. And one day you say, and you say it nicely, by the way, you say it over and over again. You give him every opportunity to work something out. You say, hey, look, I need a slightly better deal here. And your neighbor walks out of the room. That is what happened with Canada. President Trump, at 1 a.m. on Sunday, was on social media. Now, I know some people in the media, our friends in the press, they love to clutch their pearls when the president posts at 1 a.m. Oh, it's so undignified. Meanwhile, CNN at 1 a.m. is running a documentary about somebody's feelings. At least the president's awake and he's fighting for you. I'll take that trade every day of the week. And what he said was simple. He's not backing down. The Canadian negotiators walked out of the talks. Fine. Then the tariffs stay. In fact, I suspect they go up, because that is what happens when you try to stare down a man who does not blink. Now, the media narrative, and I want you to pay attention to this because it is remarkably consistent across every outlet. The media narrative is that Trump is reckless, that this trade war is going to hurt American consumers, that we need Canada more than Canada needs us. They've been running that story for a year and a half now. And I want to ask you a simple question. If Canada holds all the cards, why did their negotiators walk out? You walk out of talks when the other side has leverage and you don't want to admit it. That's why. Here is something the drive-by media will not tell you about the U.S.-Canada trade situation. Canada runs a supply-managed dairy system. What that means, for those of you in Rio Linda, is the Canadian government artificially props up prices on milk, cheese, butter, you name it, and then slaps massive tariffs on American dairy products trying to compete. 270% tariffs on butter. On butter, my friends. And we are supposed to feel guilty about defending ourselves. We are supposed to listen to former Vice President Mike Pence go on CNN, and tell us that a trade war with Canada is the last thing our economy needs right now. Mikey, I have genuine affection for Mike Pence. He served this country. He is a decent man. But when you go on the Communist News Network and you tell Dana Bash, that Donald Trump's trade policy is dangerous, you are not speaking for conservatives. You are speaking for the Chamber of Commerce donor base that has been selling out the American worker for 40 years. Those are different things. The argument against Trump's tariffs always sounds like this. Well, Rick, theoretically, in a perfectly competitive global market, free trade between all nations produces optimal outcomes for aggregate consumer welfare. And I want to say, you know what else produces optimal outcomes? Having a manufacturing base. Having American workers with jobs. Having the leverage to say to our trading partners, if you want access to the greatest consumer market on the face of the earth, you are going to play fair. That's the argument. It's not complicated. It's not a Substack post. It is just, we have something you want. Act accordingly. Now, the left, and some on the right, frankly, the Chamber of Commerce wing, they will tell you that tariffs are just a tax on American consumers. And I will grant them this. In the short run, in some categories, prices go up. That is a real thing. I'm not going to pretend it isn't. But here is what the other side of that ledger looks like. When you have zero manufacturing in this country because every factory moved to China or Mexico because labor was cheaper, and then the supply chain gets disrupted, like, say, during a global pandemic, you cannot make your own medicine. You cannot make your own semiconductors. You cannot make your own steel. And you find out real fast that the free trade utopia your economics professor described has a few holes in it. This president is trying to rebuild something. He is trying to rebuild the industrial foundation of a country that the globalists hollowed out over 40 years, and they are furious about it. And they will throw every former vice president and every think tank fellow and every CNN anchor at him to try to stop it. And it will not work. Because the American people understand in their bones, not from a textbook, they understand that a country that can't make things can't defend itself. Canada will come back to the table. They always do. Because at the end of the day, they ship 30% of their exports to us. We ship 18% of ours to them. The math is not that hard. Now, let's pivot, because I have been looking forward to this one all morning. Dr. Anthony Fauci, America's favorite little doctor, the man who told you to wear 2 masks, the man who told you not to see your family at Christmas, the man who presided over, and this is now not a theory, this is a matter of federal record, presided over a group of people who were allegedly engaged in a cover-up of COVID-19's origins. Dr. David Morenz, who was Fauci's senior science advisor, his right-hand man at the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, has entered a guilty plea to federal conspiracy charges. Federal conspiracy charges. Now, I want you to think about the last 5 years. Think about what happened to people who raised questions about where COVID came from. They were called conspiracy theorists. They were kicked off social media. They were accused of dangerous misinformation. Scientists who raised the lab leak hypothesis were publicly humiliated. The scientific community, and I use that term loosely, closed ranks around the natural origin story like it was settled scripture. And the whole time, the people at the very top knew something was wrong. That is what a guilty plea to conspiracy charges tells you. It tells you that there was coordination. It tells you that information was being managed. It tells you that the question, where did this virus come from, a question tied to the deaths of over 1 million Americans, was being suppressed by the people whose only job was to find the answer. Now, the question everyone is asking is, how involved was Fauci himself? And the honest answer is, we don't know yet. What we do know is that Morenz was in Fauci's inner circle. What we do know is that the cover-up involved communications about the origins of the pandemic. And what we do know is that Dr. Fauci, for all of his television appearances and magazine covers and bobblehead dolls, has a lot of explaining to do. I said back in 2020 that the lab leak hypothesis deserves serious investigation. I was told I was being irresponsible. Don't doubt me, folks. I have said it before. I'll say it forever. Don't doubt me. Now, what happens next? Will Fauci be called before Congress? Will there be a real investigation? Because if there is, and I mean a real one, not a theatrical one, not one where they ask questions for the cameras and then go to dinner. If there is a real investigation, I think we are going to find out things that will make your jaw hit the floor. This matters not because we want revenge. It matters because we need to know the truth about what happened, so that the next time, and there will be a next time, the next time some novel pathogen comes out of a Chinese city, we are not starting from zero. We are not being lied to by the people who are supposed to protect us. We are not shutting down our entire economy based on models that turned out to be wrong, provided by institutions that turned out to have conflicts of interest they never disclosed. That's the story. That's what the Morenz guilty plea is really about. Not one man, not one lab. About whether the institutions that we trusted with our health and our lives during the most disruptive event of the last century were being straight with us. Based on the available evidence, I think we know the answer to that question. They were not. All right, the roundup. Quick hits, starting with the Democratic Socialists of America, who have been celebrating the 100th birthday of Fidel Castro. Now, Castro was born on August 13th, 1926, so the centennial was earlier this month. And our friends in the DSA apparently could not let it pass without some kind of tribute. That's right, a group that, I am told with a straight face, is merely a progressive political organization that wants better health care and free college, put out materials celebrating the centennial of a man who jailed dissidents, ran firing squads, turned one of the most prosperous countries in the Caribbean into a poverty museum, and denied his people basic freedoms for 6 decades. Now, these are the same people who will tell you that American billionaires are an existential threat to democracy. They'll spend all day shrieking about Elon Musk and his dangerous concentration of wealth. But Fidel Castro? Oh, he's a complicated figure. He had a genuine vision for his people. He stood up to American imperialism. You know what Castro had a vision for? Making sure nobody left. Boats, barbed wire, and a secret police. That was the vision. And the DSA is blowing out the birthday candles. This is who the American left is at its core, not the soft suburban version that talks about equity and inclusion. I'm talking about the ideological spine of the movement. They have a soft spot for communist tyranny that they can barely even hide anymore. And I think it's important that the American people see it clearly. This is not a political party with different priorities than yours. This is a movement with a fundamentally different idea of what human beings are owed by their government. And that idea has failed everywhere it has ever been tried, every single time. Next, the Alaska Senate race. And this one is absolutely worth your attention because it is extraordinary. The Federalist has been covering what they are calling the Decoy Dan plot. Here's the situation. Senator Dan Sullivan of Alaska is up for re-election. He is a solid conservative, a veteran, a good man. The Democrats, knowing they cannot beat him straight up in Alaska, have allegedly recruited a candidate with the same name, Dan Sullivan, to run as an independent. The idea being split the vote, create confusion among voters who like Dan Sullivan, and maybe squeeze out a result. If this is accurate, and the reporting suggests it is, then this is not politics. This is fraud dressed up in a ballot petition. This is what the left does when they know they can't win the argument. They don't change the argument, they change the game. They engineer the conditions so that voters who are trying to do the right thing get fooled into doing the wrong thing. The actual Dan Sullivan should win this race in a walk, but I want you watching what happens in Alaska, because the tactics being employed there are the tactics of a movement that has given up on persuasion and gone all in on manipulation. And finally, quickly, Enes Kanter Freedom. I love this man. He is a former NBA player. He played for the Celtics, among others. He gave up his Turkish citizenship. He has spent years calling out China and the NBA's cowardice on China. He's been a thorn in the side of every comfortable political hypocrite in professional basketball. And now he shows up at a WNBA game and gets ejected. Why? Because Chicago Sky guard Natasha Cloud, a player who, I should point out, has never met a left-wing cause she didn't immediately adopt and amplify, apparently made a crude remark to him, and he responded, and then he got thrown out. Now, who started it is something of a factual matter, but who got ejected is not. The man who has spent his career criticizing authoritarian regimes gets bounced from an arena. The woman who insulted him stays on the court. The WNBA, folks, the most politically curated sports league in America, where the game is almost secondary to the messaging. I'll say this for Kanter Freedom. He keeps showing up, and that is more than you can say for most people in his position. All right, my friends, we have covered a lot of ground today. Trade wars, narco-terrorists meeting their maker, Fauci's empire starting to crack at the foundation, communist birthday parties, ballot shenanigans in Alaska, and Enes Kanter Freedom getting the boot for refusing to be quiet. Here is what I want you to take away from today. There is a through line in every single one of these stories, every one of them. And the through line is this: the people in charge of things, the institutions, the agencies, the leagues, the networks, they have an interest in you not knowing what's actually going on. They have an interest in you being confused or distracted or feeling like the situation is too complicated for a regular person to have an opinion about. And my job every single day behind this microphone is to tell you that it is not that complicated. Canada wants a better deal than it deserves. We hold the cards. Fauci's people knew things they didn't tell you. That is a scandal, and we should call it one. The DSA wants to celebrate a communist dictator. Fine, let them show you exactly who they are. A Senate race is being gamed by a cynical, dirty trick. Name it, say it plainly, and vote accordingly. You are not powerless. The American people are not some passive audience waiting to be told what to think by people who went to the right schools and sit on the right panels. You are the country. You are the whole thing. And the moment you remember that, fully remember it, not just in November, but every day, that is the moment the people who are counting on your confusion have a real problem. The midterms are coming, and every close race needs you to actually show up. Don't stay home. Don't assume it's handled. Show up. I'm Rick LeBeau. This has been Rush Hour. Same time tomorrow, if they let us back on.